Part 1. The Emperor Who Thought He Was a God. You wake to the sound of marble cracking beneath the weight of golden statues, idols in the likeness of a single man who believes himself a god. The year is 3980. You are a senator of Rome, cloaked in dignity, yet trembling in fear, standing in the shadow of the Palatine Hill. The imperial palace looms above you like a marble mountain, but within its gilded halls, the air is thick not with incense but with terror. Emperor Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, known to history as Caligula, has summoned another meeting, and the outcome, as always, will be written in blood. Your colleagues avert their eyes, sweat staining their fine togas, each one silently calculating how many more dawns they may live to see. The emperor sits upon his throne, idly stroking the neck of his beloved stallion, Incitatus. His pale eyes drift lazily over the assembly. One word from him, spoken as casually as a yawn, can condemn a senator, his wife, his children, and his household to death. Is not law that rules here, nor tradition, but the whim of a 23-year-old who insists that Rome itself bow before him as if he were Jupiter descended. Perfume lingers in the corridors, thick, cloying, suffocating, mixed with the metallic tang of fear. Purple silk drapes every column, every arch, shimmering under lamplight, symbols of imperial divinity. Yet beneath the surface splendor lies a cruel theater. Caligula is not simply issuing decrees, he is performing. He demands that Rome's senators not only obey but worship him. In this chamber, politics is no longer politics. It is ritual. It is humiliation. It is survival. Today's spectacle begins with the casual cruelty that has become his signature. He toys with the names of absent colleagues, rolling them across his tongue as though savoring their fates. With the same hand that tenderly strokes Incitatus' mane, he gestures to an officer of the Praetorian Guard. The senator is seized. His crime: insufficient worship. No offering left at the emperor's shrine, no prayers whispered with enough devotion. Death follows, swift and unquestioned. To the people of Rome, Caligula is the god emperor. To you, he is the living reminder that absolute power has no boundaries. You dare not look away. To avert your gaze is to invite suspicion. So you stand, motionless, your heart hammering in your chest, while your emperor decides who among you will breathe another day. But beneath the horror lies irony. This was the man who, just 2 years earlier, was welcomed as a savior. The boy once adored by legions, lifted upon their shields, called Little Boots, in affectionate jest, had become the emperor who demanded temples in his own name. How swiftly hope curdled into dread. The Senate chamber is silent now. Only the echo of sandals on marble and the nervous breath of powerful men lingers. At the center of it all sits Caligula, smiling faintly, whispering to his horse as if consulting a fellow consul. In that moment, you realize, the line between man and God, sanity and madness, has been erased, and Rome itself has been trapped inside the mind of one man. Part 2. A childhood among soldiers. Long before the throne, before the madness, before the empire bent beneath his cruelty, Caligula was just a boy running between tents in a Roman camp. His name, Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, was far too heavy for a child to carry, but the soldiers gave him a nickname, one that would cling to him for life. Caligula *, Little Boots. Picture the scene: Germania, the northern frontier of the empire, a land of thick forests and restless tribes. The Roman legions march, disciplined and ironclad, but among them trots a small boy in miniature armor, a helmet too large for his head, and tiny Caligula, the hobnailed boots of a legionary. The men adore him. In a world of blood and mud, he is a spark of innocence, a living mascot for the army. Hardened veterans, who think nothing of slaughter, break into laughter as he waddles past. They ruffle his hair, call his name, and cheer when he mimics the stern salutes of his father's office. That father was Germanicus, Rome's shining star, nephew of the Emperor Tiberius, heir to the empire, adored by the people, worshipped by the soldiers. He was the general who turned defeats into victories, who pacified provinces not just with iron but with kindness. To many Romans, he was the embodiment of old virtues: bravery, mercy, loyalty. To his enemies, he was terrifying. To young Caligula, he was everything. And so the boy's earliest memories were not of marble palaces or Senate debates, but of camps filled with the smell of smoke and steel, of songs sung by marching men, of banners snapping in the wind. His lullabies were the clatter of swords and the tramp of boots. His playground was the frontier. And in that crucible, a strange lesson was etched into him. Power belonged to those who were feared, but love was earned on the edge of a blade. The soldiers, of course, never guessed the shadow their games cast. They saw only a child, giggling as he stumbled over the uneven ground in his little armor. They never imagined that one day, this boy they called Little Boots would sit on the throne of the empire, demanding their descendants kneel before him as though he were a god. Yet even in childhood, there were signs. Caligula carefully watched how the men obeyed his father without hesitation, watched how fear and love bound an army together. He saw that loyalty was not bought with gold, but with spectacle victories, triumphs, and the promise of glory. Lessons carved into his memory before he could even write his own name. But Germany was only the beginning. Rome itself, with its poisonous intrigues and whispering courtiers, was waiting. And though Caligula's childhood seemed gilded with laughter and affection, fate was already sharpening its knife. For the boy who marched in little boots would soon learn that in Rome, even gods could bleed. Part 3. The Empire's shining hope. In the first decades of the 1st century, Rome lived under a paradox. Its emperor, Tiberius, sat in silent gloom on the island of Capri, ruling with suspicion and paranoia. But in the heart of the empire, the people placed their hopes not in him, but in another. That man was Germanicus Caligula's father. To the Romans, he was more than a general. He was a symbol, a man of noble blood, heir to the Julian line, destined to inherit the purple. Where Tiberius inspired fear, Germanicus inspired love. Where Tiberius withdrew, Germanicus advanced, leading his legions across the Rhine, striking deep into the forests of Germania to avenge Rome's most humiliating defeat, the loss of 3 legions in the Teutoburg forest. Imagine the scene. The Roman eagle standards, once thought lost forever, raised high again as Germanicus carried them home in triumph. Crowds filled the streets of Rome, shouting his name. He was young, charismatic, and impossibly popular. His victories made him a hero to the legions. His kindness made him beloved by the common people. Even the Senate, so often wary of military men, saw in him the promise of stability. And wherever Germanicus went, his family followed. His wife, Agrippina the Elder, proud, strong, fiercely loyal, stood at his side, the very picture of Roman dignity. Around them clustered their 6 children, each born to privilege but raised in the shadow of the army. Among them was Gaius Caligula, still running in little boots, absorbing every gesture, every triumph, every whisper of adoration that surrounded his father. But admiration breeds envy. In Rome, popularity was not a blessing, it was a threat, and Tiberius, seated upon the throne, watched Germanicus rise with growing unease. Here was a man who commanded not just the loyalty of the legions, but the love of the people. In an empire where fear kept the machinery of power turning, Germanicus was proof that there could be another way, a ruler loved rather than dreaded. For a brief, shining moment, Rome dared to dream of a future under Germanicus, a golden age renewed, the Caesar reborn. The Senate murmured of his virtues, the people cheered his name in the forum, and the soldiers vowed that they would follow him to the ends of the earth. And the boy, Caligula, watched it all. He was too young to understand the jealous currents swirling in Rome, too innocent to grasp how dangerous it was for his father to shine so brightly. But he understood this much. The world adored Germanicus, and to be adored was to hold a power even greater than fear. The empire, for one fleeting moment, believed in hope. But Rome has never been kind to its shining stars. Part 4. In the year 1980, the empire's shining hope flickered and dimmed. Germanicus, in the prime of his life, was dispatched eastward to oversee the provinces, a mission wrapped in diplomacy but shadowed by suspicion. His popularity had grown too great, his victories too glorious. Tiberius, still emperor, seemed eager to send him far from Rome's beating heart. At first, the journey was triumphant. Germanicus entered the cities of the east with all the splendor of a conquering hero. Crowds showered him with flowers, temples rang with acclamations, and in every pore, the people hailed him as Rome's true future. Yet beneath the gold and garlands lurked a silent danger. In Antioch, Germanicus fell suddenly ill. The stories vary. Some whispered of poison slipped into his food, others spoke of a slow and wasting fever. Roman rumor, ever quick to find villains, pointed its finger at Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso, the governor of Syria, loyalist of Tiberius. Piso had clashed bitterly with Germanicus, and many believed he had acted as the emperor's dagger, striking not with a blade but with a cup. For days, Germanicus lingered, his body wasting, his strength fading. Agrippina wept by his side, the children silent with fear. In those dimly lit chambers, Caligula, barely 7 years old, watched the godlike figure of his father, the man adored by legions, reduced to a pale shadow, sweating, gasping, fading into silence. When Germanicus finally died, the empire trembled. His death was not just a family's tragedy, it was a political earthquake. In Rome, the people erupted in grief. Crowds filled the streets, wailing as though the empire itself had been wounded. Temples overflowed with offerings. Statues were draped in black. To the Roman people, it was not merely the loss of a man, but the loss of their future. And yet grief quickly curdled into rage. Rumors of poison, of conspiracy, of Tiberius' hand behind the death spread like wildfire. Germanicus' ashes were carried back to Rome in a somber procession, with Agrippina at the forefront, stoic, unbending, her children behind her. The sight ignited the people's fury. This was no ordinary widow. She was the embodiment of Roman virtue, and her husband's murder, whether real or imagined, became a stain on the emperor himself. But in the heart of the little boy who had once been Rome's mascot, the wound cut deeper than any rumor. Caligula had seen his father adored like a god, only to die helpless and betrayed. He had seen the Senate praise Germanicus in public yet cower before Tiberius in private. And in that contradiction, something began to shift within him. The lesson was bitter, but unforgettable. Love is fleeting, admiration can be stolen, but fear endures. From this crucible of grief and suspicion, the child who once danced among soldiers began to harden. The little boots grew heavier. The boy who learned love from his father would one day seek power not through kindness, but through terror. 5 years have passed since the boy in little boots walked among the legions. The child who once clung to his father's side now walks alone, hardened, silent, and sharpened by grief. Germanicus is gone, Agrippina's defiance has been crushed, and the household of Caligula has been scattered like ashes in the wind. Rome has a new master, not a soldier adored by the people, not a hero crowned in laurel, but an old man hid in shadows. Tiberius, once a general of renown, now rules from a distance, retreating from Rome to the rocky island of Capri. There, surrounded by spies and sycophants, he has built a palace of fear. For Caligula, now a teenager, Capri becomes both a prison and a school. He watches as senators are accused, exiled, and executed. He learns how smiles conceal daggers, how whispers carry more weight than swords, how suspicion can kill faster than poison. In this nest of vipers, survival requires silence, obedience, and masks. And so Caligula masters the art of performance. In public, he is the dutiful grandson, the humble ward of Tiberius. He flatters, he bows, he endures. He whispers words of loyalty to the man many say murdered his father. To those who watch him, he seems pliant, submissive, a harmless ornament in the emperor's household. But inside, something else is growing. Every humiliation, every act of obedience, every swallowed word becomes fuel. He begins to see power not as duty or honor, as Germanicus once taught, but as theater. Tiberius has shown him that rule is not simply command, it is domination. It is spectacle. It is the power to shape reality itself. And when in 37 AD, Tiberius finally dies, Caligula is ready. At just 24 years old, the Senate proclaims him emperor. The people rejoice. Crowds pour into the streets, hailing him as the son of Germanicus, the child they once cheered in tiny boots, the heir of hope reborn. Statues rise, temples fill, and voices echo across the forum. Caligula, Caligula, Caligula. But beneath the joy lies danger. Power has returned to the boy who grew up surrounded by soldiers and vipers. The lessons of his childhood are now etched into his reign. The adoration of the masses is intoxicating, but it is fragile. To hold it, he must become more than a man. And so begins the transformation. Caligula does not simply rule Rome, he declares himself its god. He orders temples built in his honor, demands sacrifices at his altars, and dresses not in the toga of a citizen but in the robes of Jupiter himself. Senators are forced to prostrate before him, to treat his words as divine command. He insists that statues of gods bear his own face. To Caligula, this is not madness, it is survival. He has seen how love fades, how loyalty wavers, how even the brightest star can be snuffed out. Only divinity, only fear, only the crushing weight of godhood can make power eternal. The Senate bows, the people cheer, and the boy in little boots is gone forever. In his place stands a god, or so he believed. Part 6: Power, Sex, and Humiliation. The dream of Rome reborn did not last long. For a brief, dazzling moment, Caligula's reign promised renewal. He freed prisoners, granted bonuses to soldiers, and was hailed as the merciful son of Germanicus. But mercy, in Caligula's world, was only an overture. The true performance was yet to begin, and when it did, Rome recoiled. The emperor's palace became not merely the center of power, but a theater of humiliation. Senators, once the proud guardians of Rome's traditions, were reduced to trembling actors on his stage. He forced them to grovel at his feet, to kiss the hem of his robes, to compete for his favor like slaves bidding for freedom. With a sly smile, he reminded them that their lives' honor, dignity, legacy were his to grant or destroy at a whim. But power alone was not enough. Caligula blurred every boundary between politics and spectacle, between devotion and degradation, between desire and domination.